Hey everybody, Brett back from Labette and the Belfry here for another video.
Welcome!
I'm here for my 17th horror vlog, I believe. I just wanted to talk about stuff I watched recently. Two of them you can see right here. I recently rewatched Halloween 3. Now on this channel I did a ranking of Halloween movies from best to worst, and I ranked Halloween 3 pretty high up. And after rewatching it, it's a kind of a big reason why I ranked it so high. It's one of those movies that, if you haven't seen it, crazy strange incident happens to this doctor one night shift basically, and pretty much this doctor and this guy who gets murdered, his daughter, they kind of team up and go investigate this company called Silver Shamrock that make these Halloween masks. And as the movie goes on, you find out that the CEO of this company basically is using these masks to almost take over the world. So it's funny that it is a Halloween like type movie, but after rewatch, I never really thought about it, but it is really science fiction type vibe in this movie, even though it is taking place around the time of Halloween and on Halloween night. A lot of the plot and how things are revealed is extremely sci-fi, and I kind of love that about this movie. And one other thing I really love about Halloween 3 is its ending. It's one of those movies where, you know, in horror movies usually you have like a final girl, or you have the last like lone survivor who, you know, gets one up on the villain or gets one up and is able to survive through the movie. And then you have like kind of that fake out scare ending where it's like, oh, the villain didn't really die, he's still alive or whatever, or, you know, just one last like boo type thing. But the thing I love about Halloween 3 is, like, even though the main character kind of mostly succeeds, evil still wins in the end. And I kind of love that about this movie. I mean, the most recent thing of recent memory, I want to say, is like Avengers Infinity War. Like, a lot of people went and saw that, and the bad guy ends up winning. Obviously, with the following Avengers movie, Endgame, you know, of course, they undo everything basically. But Avengers Infinity War, it was like, oh, Thanos won. That's kind of crazy. And to me, I loved that about Infinity War. It was like the bad guy won. But to me, it's like the villain made a lot of sense to me. And, you know, he wasn't a great person, but, you know, what his motivations were, it kind of made sense to me. And I love that movies, like, go and take that risk. And Halloween 3 kind of does that, because evil does win in the end. It's like, you know, the protagonist, it's funny because the protagonist really isn't that great of a person. Like, he has an ex-wife, he, like, isn't even there for his kids half the time. And he basically hooks up with the guy who gets murdered, his daughter, like, and he meets up with her. They hook up really quickly. Like, within no time, they're, like, already hooking up and everything. And you're just like, this guy's kind of sleazy. He's just, like, a womanizer and everything. And, you know, he has good intentions because he's trying to stop Silver Shamrock from basically taking over people's television sets and all these kids putting on masks. And I feel like a movie like this would not fly today based on its concept, because basically it's like you watch like a kid put on a mask and then literally die in this movie. And like with what is implied at what happens at the end, it's like all these children are going to die, or, you know, it's like people are going to be parentless. And me being a new parent, I mean, this movie is a lot of cheese in it, and it was made in 1982, so it's like, I don't take it that seriously, but I feel like if you made a movie like this, if they modernized it, they would play it straight, and they would make it a very serious thing, and I definitely would see some controversy behind it. But I love that this movie, like, it goes that extra risk, and is like, you think the guy is going to succeed, and then things just really turn amok. Like, I mean, I hate to spoil it. I mean, the movie is like 40 plus years old at this point now. But, you know, basically it was like the love interest like turns out to be one of these robot things in the end, and the guy named Cochran who runs Silver Shamrock, like he basically just made all these robot people, and in this town where there are no legit human beings, like he does sell to other human beings these masks, but like he has this mass product that he's produced, and then when this commercial goes on, televisions on Halloween night, it's basically like you see what the prototype, like the test subject, like what happens to him, and it's just like this family that they sell to these masks. It's like, oh, their son like puts the mask on, watches the commercial, and then these bugs and snakes, and he's just like reduced to a pile of bugs, snakes, and like disgustingness. And I don't know, I just love that about this movie, and it's still to this day, like it definitely has gained a lot of praise among people, because people have finally looked past the whole like, oh, Michael Myers is not in this movie, so it was supposed to be an anthology series, okay, let's just watch it for what it is. And some people really like it, including myself. So yeah, I really dig this movie, and at first I was kind of like, it's like my second favorite Halloween movie in the franchise, and so I was kind of hesitant and being like, did I rank that correctly? Or because rankings are kind of weird when I don't know, like ranking things, it's like really hard to score stuff, and I just like things for what they are. It's like if I just like the movie, I'm gonna like it. But after watching Halloween 3, I'm like, no, that's a good spot to put it. I really dug this movie and continue to dig it, and I pretty much watch it every Halloween season now. And yeah, I love the ending. Like I always say that I love the Halloween 1978's ending. I love Halloween 4's ending, but this is a great ending up there among those. I mean, it's one of those that like evil actually gets the victory in the end. And so I can't really say like too much. I just think like people who don't like 80s horror most likely won't like this movie. But I love Halloween 3, and yeah, I just wanted to come on and sing its praises a little bit. So let's move on. Sorry, Mr. Xenomorph, I gotta move you. I got a little Xenomorph figure on top of this next movie I'm going to talk about. And that is Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. And this is my VHS copy. As you can tell, it's kind of dusty. I forgot to dust it off, but I did watch this recently, and I like how the VHS says, "Please be kind, rewind." And yeah, I dig this movie. Pretty much it is, I wouldn't say it's up there as one, like, for the 90s, this movie does definitely have like an 80s feel to it, because obviously the Tales from the Crypt TV show started in like the mid to late 80s and went to the like mid 90s. And this was, I think it was 1995. Yeah, 1995 this came out. And like, I mean, pretty much it's what you expect. If you like Tales from the Crypt, the TV show, or have seen a couple episodes and have enjoyed it, you may enjoy this one. I do like that this movie is while it is very horror at its core, it does have a big fantasy element to it. And I mean, it does have some religion stuff related to that, but it doesn't go like hardcore with the religion stuff. So I'm not a religious person by any means, but like for plot wise, why it is the way it is, it makes sense. I won't give all that away. Billy Zane's chasing William Sadler's character, and they end up at this like cheap motel. And a lot of people are kind of sketched out by William Sadler's character, but turns out he's actually like the protagonist in this movie, and Billy Zane is the villain. But he's so damn charming that everyone thinks that Billy Zane is just like, oh, I had this ancient relic that this guy stole from me, and I'm just trying to get it back. And this movie is gory, it's fun, the practical effects are hilarious. Billy Zane basically, like, he punches through a guy's face, not punches a guy in the face, he punches through a guy's face, like as the first kill in this movie, and it's amazing. The actual demons that show up at the motel are just like, throughout the movie, there's like, the only way to kill them is you shoot them in the eyeballs. You have to shoot both their eyes out, and that's not a you know, you'll shoot your eye out, like Christmas Story reference. Like, that's just how you kill the demons in this movie. And so when you shoot both their eyes out, they like glow all these green lights and stuff like that, and they're like, wow. And I don't know, it's hilarious. This movie's just a lot of fun. If you like 80s, even early 90s horror, you'll enjoy this. This movie definitely is a product of its time. The beginning of this movie plays the song Hey Man, Nice Shot by Filter. And so it's like, that's one of the most 1990s songs, like, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely a product of its time. But of course, this movie is introduced by the Crypt Keeper, and he is now a director in Hollywood, so he's made it to the big time. So he pretty much opens the movie, introduces us to the story of Demon Knight, and the movie wraps up like a typical episode of Tales from the Crypt, where the story ends and then goes back to the Crypt Keeper. But in this one, he is going to the premiere of his own movie, Demon Knight, and he walks the red carpet and then gets his head chopped off. And I wouldn't see it any other way, honestly. And yeah, this is a fun movie. It's one that I think people really enjoyed when it came out. Even some people probably do hate on this movie, like even now. But the thing I love about it is its practical effects. Now, the final girl is Jada Pinkett Smith. She hasn't really done herself any favors, but I do like her character in this movie, and she is a decent final girl. But yeah, the practical effects are definitely a big highlight of this movie, and I think that's why this movie holds up pretty well. It is pretty corny and pretty cheesy. It definitely has like that cheesy 80s horror vibe to it, even though this was made in the mid-90s. That's what I like about it, because there's really not CGI effects. I think the CGI effects is when like the demon's eyes are being shot out, and yeah, there's not a whole lot of CGI effects in this movie. It's just mostly practical. So I think that's why it holds up pretty well and is fun. And I just like cheesy horror movies like this, where it doesn't take itself super seriously. And yeah, like I said, Billy Zane steals the show. Like, he's so funny in this movie. And so I obviously highly recommend this one. If you haven't watched it this time, you know, for the spooky season, this is definitely a good one. This is a good October movie. I usually never watch this movie really any other time of the year. This is usually, yeah, definitely a good choice for the October and, you know, Halloween season. So definitely check out Demon Knight, Tales from the Crypt. And I have one more thing to mention, to talk about is, I mean, I have reviewed every season of The Walking Dead at some point on this channel in some way, shape, or form. My season 9 review was just an audio review, and then I've done horror vlogs on season 7 and 8. Then I've done just separate videos of like each season. But I have finally watched season 10 of The Walking Dead, and at this current time, recording this video, Walking Dead Dead City has aired. They're currently airing the Daryl Dixon show. I have kind of stayed out of like reading anything into those shows. I did watch the very first episode of Dead City, and it definitely does have quite a different vibe from the original Walking Dead series. So I am looking forward to watching that, because at this point in the show, I did enjoy season 10. I don't think it was among a great season. It did have great moments, but season 10 wasn't super memorable, because comparing it to season 9 had the Whisperers, the introduction of them. You had Rick leave the show, and then the Whisperers were introduced, and the Whisperers had a great introduction. They did something truly shocking in the episode The Calm Before, which was like the Red Wedding of The Walking Dead, and I love that. But season 10, they kind of fluttered out. I mean, honestly, I will spoil the whole Whisperers arc and the Whisperer War. Part of me liked it, how the Whisperer War was kind of ending up, but I feel like it ended kind of anticlimactically. I mean, but then again, I don't really know how else they would have really ended this story, because it ended kind of quietly. Like, I guess you want to say pun intended, because yeah, the Whisperers, it's like they led this huge horde of walkers to Alexandria, and they were just trying to survive, all the people from Alexandria, Hilltop, and such. And they basically were able to. Alpha ended up dying due to Negan, kind of being more on the inside. And so he decapitated Alpha, who was one of the leaders. So that just left Beta. And I loved Beta as a character. He was just super imposing and such. But the way that Beta was taken out, it was kind of fitting for his character, but at the same time, he kind of went out pretty anticlimactically. Like, it basically was just Negan snuck up on him. Negan and Daryl were able to get free, during the Walker horde and everything, so Beta ended up getting, devoured by a bunch of walkers, and it was at that point, he didn't, care, as he was being bitten into, because the Whisperers really were just among the walkers. They really thought they were one among them, and they always whispered that phrase, "We are the end of the world." And I mean, it's in a way that was fitting, a fitting end to that group of people. But it's kind of a double-edged sword for me, because it's I don't know how else they would have ended this without it being a big war thing, kind of like the whole Saviors and Rick's group. It wasn't that bad, but I did wish that it kind of, I wish season 10 with the Whisperers held up as well as season 9. Season 9 was, they just had a killer introduction. They were awesome through season 9. And yeah, some points in season 10, Alpha was just really getting on my nerves. And I was reading some stuff online that, people did not like Alpha in season 10. Her whole charm and, her aesthetic really was wearing on people, and people were just really starting to get sick of her, the way she talked and everything and how she went about things. And I definitely agree with that. I'm glad that honestly, that Walk With Us episode, and she gets decapitated, Negan throws her head at Carol at the end of the episode or something like that. And I will say, I really was not expecting it to happen that soon, but it is what it is. Yeah, season 10 is not a bad season. It's definitely not season 7 and 8. Those were really hard to get through. I will say season 10, because it was most of the seasons after, season 2 were 16 episodes, but season 10, because that was happening during COVID times and stuff, that they had season 8, season, 10A, 10B, and then they had a 10C where they had a handful of episodes they shot during COVID. And there was really only one good episode that came out of that, and that was the episode Here's Negan, which is the season 10 finale. That is the best episode of the entire season, and it didn't really have to do with the main story. It was just Negan's backstory of him and his wife, coming up and dealing with the apocalypse, and Negan's wife was sick and had cancer, and him just trying to take care of her. And this was an episode where you really got to empathize with Negan, and because him being introduced in season 7, people just could not stand this guy and wanted him to die so badly. But by the time you get to season 10, it's if you continued with the show, you did start to like Negan, and he definitely redeemed himself a good bit. And especially with Here's Negan, it's you get why he pretty much, he lost everything he loved. He lost his wife. He wasn't even really that good of a person, or he really struggled before the apocalypse and even during the apocalypse. He was just a high school gym teacher. He didn't have much going for him. He lost his job at the same time that she found out she had cancer. And so yeah, he wasn't really a good person then, but you couldn't help but empathize with him when he was just trying to take care of his wife. And yeah, this is an episode that is really heavy, and it's very emotional at times. And for a show like The Walking Dead, where it's just people dying and it's super depressing, this is an episode that has some really touching moments. And yeah, I think that Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and actually Jeffrey Dean Morgan's wife in real life, I think her name's Hilary Burton, who played Lucille, their chemistry really shines. Like, you can tell they have, they're married in real life, and that really comes through in this episode. There's a lot of people who do, actors who do have good natural chemistry together, but obviously they're not really together. But it's like, in this, you get that like kind of authenticity between both of them, and I thought they both did an amazing job. And yeah, this is the best episode of season 10. And I mean, there were a couple of real stinkers before this Here's Negan episode, like the episode Splinter, that just dealt with like Princess, and she had like PTSD, and she was having all these like hallucinations. She was like in the train car because she was captured by people of the Commonwealth, which that's going to come into play in season 11. But it was just basically her having these illusions and like kind of coming to gripes with what happened in her past and such. So and then there is the episode Diverged, which is the worst Walking Dead episode of all time. You literally watch Daryl kind of struggle with his motorcycle, and then Carol, like, I don't even know, like, I can't even remember what happens because there's literally no plot to this episode. It's like Carol is struggling to make soup or something like that. Like, you could clearly tell they were like, you have to make an episode on something, and they literally had no ideas, and it really shows in this episode. It is the lowest rated episode of The Walking Dead on IMDb, for good reason, because you can literally skip this episode and it makes no difference. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about the episode Splinter, but at least that has something going for it. It doesn't have much, but at least it is somewhat engaging. And Diverged is just like, you have two of the best characters in the show, and they cannot save this episode whatsoever. And I don't even know why they even put this out, honestly. I mean, I know that, with COVID and everything, they probably wanted to hold people over till season 11. But, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, they should have had this as like a lost episode. And then when they released season 10, they could have just put it out like as a special feature to be like, the lost episode of The Walking Dead or something like that, where it was like, it was a deleted episode because it was just, there was nothing going for it. You watched Daryl have trouble with his motorcycle, so he was just trying to get supplies for that. And then you watch Carol trying to make soup. And yeah, I guess that has an arc in it, but it's so bad. Like, there is just nothing to it. It's almost like watching characters in a post-apocalyptic show like live a normal life, and it's like, it's kind of like what made me think of Halloween Ends. Like, I don't know, because it's like a lot of Halloween Ends was like Laurie Strode just kind of healed from all the events of Halloween 1978, Halloween 2018, and Halloween Kills, and it's like her just kind of living her life, and you watch a lot of that in that movie. And this is kind of that way in this episode of The Walking Dead. Like, you Diverge, you just watch two people just kind of live their life. It's like, you don't watch that. You don't watch The Walking Dead for that. I don't know. It's so weird. But yeah, season 10, I mean, it is among one of the lower tier seasons for me. I mean, we'll see how season 11 holds up for me. But season 9 was like a great return to form. Even after Rick leaves the show, they killed Carl, and Rick leaves the show in season 9, and they still made an awesome season. And then season 10 was just kind of like, meh. And I don't know how season 11 is. I haven't really heard all that much about it, whether it's good or bad. We'll see, though. I'll eventually get to it. I mean, I've slowly been watching this whole series like throughout this whole year 2023, so because I do want to eventually get to Dead City and the Daryl Dixon show. I'm hoping that the spin-off shows kind of do have a slightly different flavor and kind of bring a different vibe, and at least the fact that they are spin-offs, I hope that is the case. We'll see, though, at least on my opinion. I'm sure people are enjoying the spin-offs or enjoy season 10 and 11 of The Walking Dead. But anyway, I just want to come on, do another horror vlog, and kind of spitball and word vomit things out to people. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did. I'll leave it at that. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in a future video. Bye.